Hey everyone, welcome back to GFXRhino. Today we're going to talk about something that is like a very important key to making great Roblox GFX. If you saw the title, I said it's the key to Roblox GFX that no one wants you to know, but that's just, that's a bit clickbaity, but you still get the point. It's a really important key to making great Roblox GFX, and honestly it is something that I don't think many people talk about. I might be wrong, but this thing is focus points, and a focus point is genuinely something that can take your GFX from good to great. Now, whether you've just started off in GFX or you've been creating it for a while, you've probably seen some scenes that just feel a bit off, like there's too much going on, and that, you know what I mean, it's just your eyes don't know where to land on the scene. So I'll show you some examples of this in a bit, but first let's break down why having a focus point is so important and how you can create one in your GFX. So what exactly do I mean by a focus point? Well, it's the part of your scene that the viewer's eye is naturally drawn to first. Think of it like this. When someone looks at your GFX, you want them to instantly know where to look. It could be like a character, a tank, a car, just any sort of object, or even just like a specific part in the environment. But the key is that the viewer should be able to immediately identify what's important in the scene. And this isn't even just something that applies to Roblox GFX, this applies to photography, this applies to just art in general as well. So it's a big, it's a very important thing. Without a focus point, your GFX can end up looking very cluttered or confusing with just a lot going on, and sometimes people throw just a lot of stuff into their scene to make it look more dynamic or detailed, but if there's too much going on and nothing specific stands out, it just feels overwhelming. And this happens not only in bad GFX, but also really high quality work. Like for example, Vanzier right here, he's an absolutely talented GFX artist, and right here was his submission for the Soft Star GFX contest. To be fair though, it was rushed in 4 days, and for 4 days, this is incredible, right? But I do feel like, obviously this guy right here is kind of meant to be the focus point, Softy GB's character right here is meant to be the focus point, but I do just feel like there's so much of a gap going on around the character that it just doesn't put the most attention. And of course as well, there's also Star's avatar down here shooting all the zombies, and there's just a lot going on down here as well. Don't get me wrong, it's incredible, right? And I wish I could create something like this, but I do just feel like, you know what I mean, there's just a little bit too much going on, especially around this, area. I should probably also talk about why a focus point is important. Well, without a clear focus point, your viewer won't know where to look first. Their eyes might jump around the scene, but they won't really connect with what you're trying to convey, you know what I mean? You're kind of meant to be telling a story with your GFX, and the focus point is a huge part of how that story is conveyed. So let's take a look at this GFX right here. In this, there's just so much happening that you kind of get lost. You can see the lighting, the characters, the object in the background, they're kind of all competing for attention. Like some of the objects in the back are the same like visibility, you know what I mean? They're not blurred, right? So they kind of appear, and especially the size of them as well, they appear like they're the main focus point, but they're obviously not meant to be. Now I'm going to use Vazy right here. I'm going to use his Survival Odyssey GFX right here as a great example for what you should be trying to achieve. Here there's a very clear focus point. Obviously this, character about to axe down the tree right here. And then everything else in the scene, once you start to look around, the coconuts, all the trees, this other guy, other characters, the big volcano in the back, all these other things, complement the main focal point. Your eyes go right where the artist wants you to look, which is kind of, once again, this tree and the character about to break it down. And then the whole rest of the composition and just the whole composition of the scene in general just kind of complements that and makes it feel more intentional and polished. Another one here, for example, there's like some cool characters around the place, but obviously because of this arachnid person, the spider woman right here, because of her size, she's kind of meant to be the main focus point, right? And even having the characters in the foreground, like this guy right here, right in the front, even having him just slightly blurred brings your attention away from him and more onto the, big spider woman thing. So how do you actually create a focus point in your GFX? Well, the two biggest tools and the two biggest main things to know about, having a focal point is depth of field or aperture and lighting. Let's start off with depth of field. Now this is probably one you've used before, and if you don't already know, it's kind of just where the background and stuff is blurred. The stuff in the distance, even the stuff up close to the camera, is blurred to bring attention away from it and more onto whatever you actually want the attention to be on. So you just blur out the background and put the main subject of your GFX in a sharp focus. This is something you see all the time in photography, cinematography, art, everything. It's a powerful way to make your subjects stand out. So for example, if you want your character to be the focus, blurring everything out behind them instantly just draws the viewer's eyes to where they should be looking. It adds depth to your scene, making it feel more realistic while also, you know, directing the viewer's attention. And yeah, this is probably one you've used before without even noticing that it was, you know, a focus point, a focal point, a very important thing of GFX. Next up is lighting, which is probably arguably the most important part of creating a focus point. Now, I must say, I haven't mastered lighting myself. Over the next few weeks, I'm definitely going to commit myself to learning a lot more. I have already started to learn a lot more about lighting and how to just really make your lighting very interesting. But I still don't think I've mastered it enough, so I'm not going to go super in depth now, but lighting can completely change how someone views your GFX. Now, one trick I love to use, and that a lot of other people love to use, and that you might have even used before, and that is rim lighting, which is when you light the edges of your character to make it pop more from the background. You know, adding a very soft glow can really just make your character stand out from the scene without needing to mess around with the rest of the scene too much. And another thing, or kind of the main thing with lighting and using lighting to make a focus point in your scene, is don't be afraid to make your main subject brighter than the background. Even though it's technically unnatural, having rim lights and, you know, lighting up your character more from the background is unnatural, it's still just, it's something I talked about in my 5 tips for Roblox GFX video, which is don't do what's technically realistic, just do what looks best, right? So don't be afraid to make your main subject of the scene brighter than the background by just using area lights and point lights. And I notice as well, some professionals in some scenes, they'll add a point light and then put that point light right up to the character's face with just a little bit of glow, just to, you know, bring, light up the character's face a bit more, bring a bit more attention to the face, and just make it pop more. So even just a little boost of brightness by using a few area lights on your character can make all the difference. And once again, in a few weeks, I'll probably come out with a full lighting tutorial once I've got that, you know, once I understand that. So make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for that. Alright, so I've covered the main techniques using depth of field and lighting, but there's also some smaller things that contribute to creating a strong focus point. In fact, there's a lot of small things, but kind of I feel like the three, or, you know, the main ones, the main smaller details that contribute to a good focus point are, first of all, size. So if your character or subject is larger than everything else, it's naturally just going to be the focus of the scene, right? Going back to this big spider one, she's massive, right? That's why she takes up like a good portion of the scene. But at the same time, this character in the bottom left right here, he takes up a good portion of the scene. He's not massive though, he's just closer to the camera. So although I say size, I also just kind of mean distance in general, right? Because if he's closer to the camera like this character is, he just appears a lot bigger. So if your character or subject is larger than everything else, it's naturally just going to be the focus of the scene, even if you're not changing the lighting or depth of field or anything. Just making your character bigger than the surrounding elements and other parts of the scene tells your viewer where to look. And of course, as I said, this can be done by just bringing the character closer to the camera, or, you know, scaling them up compared to the background and compared to the other parts of the scene. The next thing is like color as well. This one's super interesting because it really gets kind of deep into color theory, I think. I might be wrong on that, but I do think it can get kind of deep into color theory because, you know, even if you look at red and blue being the exact same brightness, red and blue, red will still just naturally look darker to the human eye. For some reason, once again, it goes into maybe color theory, that red kind of just appears darker, and colors have emotional and visual weight. Who wrote this script? I would never say emotional and visual. And another smaller one, which I don't know if this is probably the best one to mention, but vignettes. I think it's vignettes. It's this word right here. It's where you subtly, how do you say that? Subtly, that's right, something like that. You know, you darken the edges of your scene very slightly, which, you know, just pulls your viewer's attention in more towards the center. It's not in this scene here, but I can promise you it's in the scene. You can tell like there's a little bit of darkening around the edges, which just kind of brings your view in from, you know, more into the center. Obviously this one's got a whole lot of size, this character taking up like most of the scene. In fact, both of the characters taking up most of the scene, but as well there's the slight vignette. You can see how it's just slightly darker around the edges, mainly just down in the bottom corners, just bringing your attention away from that part and more onto the characters and the main point of the scene. It's not something that jumps out at you and is very obvious, but it's, you know, kind of just works on a subconscious level. Bro, who wrote this script? You see this all the time in like movies and photography and other stuff. It's just a simple yet very effective way to light up and emphasize the main part of your scene. Now, there are a ton of other details that can go into creating a good focus point, like the way you frame your scene or even how you pose your character and other stuff like that. The important thing though is to remember that everything in your scene should contribute to that focus. If it doesn't help tell the story or make the main subject stand out, you might want to reconsider if it's like actually important or necessary for your scene. So to wrap things up, having a clear focus point in your Roblox GFX is absolutely essential. Even if it's just like a profile picture, you'll see profile pictures have characters that are obviously large, taking up most of the scene, so even they have a focus point. Without it, even the most technically impressive scene can feel flat or chaotic, right? And you can use depth of field to blur out the unnecessary background or even foreground details. You can use lighting to highlight and really just make your main character pop and glow. You can see how there's a lot of lighting on the arms here, on the hat, on just this side in general. Using glare as well, using glare to kind of make it have that very slight shine. It looks, you know, brings more attention to this character as well. And of course, don't be afraid to play around with the size and the color of everything to make your character, or not even character, just whatever the subject of your scene is, make that pop. And of course, you know, very slight tricks like vignettes and any other very small things that maybe I'll mention on screen right now. I don't know if I will, but you know, even just very small, subtle things, they, you know, really make a huge difference in how your scene is perceived. Let me know down in the comments if you've tried any of these techniques or if you have your own methods for creating good focus points in GFX. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future tips and tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.